Hello, all you mourners out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. This is Undeclared Bajor, the best Star Trek DS9 discussion podcast in the galaxy, or whatever. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Yo!
Today we're going to discuss and review Star Trek DS9 Season 6, Episode 12, Who Mourns for Morn? Alternate title, The Man with the $1 Million Throw-Up.
Did not expect, but okay. Alright.
We will be discussing spoilers up through this episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but not after this episode, so it is safe to watch along with this podcast if this is your first experience with Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But we may be less conscientious about spoiling other things.
Yep. All the things.
I can't think of anything I saw recently that I could really spoil, but I'll come up with something.
Deadpool and Wolverine are friends.
Oh my gosh.
Or something.
I keep calling that movie Deadpool versus Wolverine, but I know that's not right.
I mean, it's a little bit right.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, you gotta go see it.
Well, I don't like going to the movies. Every time I go, I regret it.
That's sad.
I know. But who needs the movies when you have, like, 4K TV? Who Mourns for Morn originally aired February 4th, 1998. It was written by Mark Garrett O'Connell. I don't think we've seen him for a while.
No, not for a while. His last one was For the Cause.
Was that season 5?
4.
That was season 4, okay. Wow.
Yep. The end of season 4 is 4/22, he did the story for this one and the story for that one is what he's credited on here as, so.
Huh.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, For the Cause. Hold on. I was wrong about that. I was reading this incorrectly because For the Cause is where Michael Eddington is evil. And
yes.
For the Uniform is where we catch Michael Eddington, right?
Yeah. Is where Captain Sisko is evil.
Yeah. So Victor Lobel, who you were about to say directed this episode, directed For the Uniform as his first Deep Space Nine episode.
Oh wow. So the For the Cause guy and the For the Uniform guy together at last.
Yeah.
It's like Pacino and De Niro.
This is also Mark Eugene Garrett O'Connell or whatever. This is his last Star Trek credit.
Oh. So farewell, Mark Garrett O'Connell.
He will go on to author a book called The Close Encounters Man, which
great title.
An article promoting that book will mention that Who Mourns for Morn is a fan favorite episode.
Oh wow! So
there you go.
Good luck with your novel career, Mark Garrett O'Connell. We never did learn how to pronounce your name correctly.
Probably.
And Sarah Claflin is not in this episode, but unlike the guy who plays Morn, he still gets a credit.
Ouch.
So something is rotten in the station of Deep Space Nine. It's Levanian beets, a big shipment of which has been neglected in Cargo Bay 3. The culprit? Morn. Luckily, everybody knows where to find Morn. Or so Odo thinks. For when Odo enters Quark's bar and finds Morn at his usual seat and starts chewing him out about the beet situation, Morn just sits there calmly enjoying his drink, while Quark watches amused. Odo reaches out to get Morn's attention, but is surprised to see his hand pass right through him. It's like, has Morn just been intangible this whole time?
Yeah, you never knew. It's crazy.
No, it's a Morn hologram, explains Quark. The real Morn is away on business, and Quark has substituted him with a hologram to keep drink sales from dropping. My theory is that nobody's afraid of looking like an alcoholic when Morn is around.
I mean, yeah, it would be hard to look More of an alcoholic than Morn.
Also, Quark made it a silent hologram as a reprieve from the notoriously loquacious Morn.
There's your explanation for anytime you see Morn not talking, it might be just the hologram.
We've never actually seen the real Morn on the show. It's always been the hologram. Then Dax walks in, sees Morn, and freaks out. Quark explains that it's just a hologram, and Sisko tells him to turn it off. For you see, the real Morn ran afoul of a plasma storm, and has joined his ancestors in the big bar in the sky.
Poor guy.
Truly, it is a sad day for all.
Poor Morn.
Then we get the answer to the question, who mourns for Morn? Everybody. The whole station makes their way to the memorial service, some carrying food and drinks to sustain Morn in his afterlife, as was the custom at the time.
It's, Morn, any of us would be lucky to have such a well-attended funeral as Morn's wake or whatever is going on here.
Absolutely. He's going to be eating and drinking good if he was really dead.
Yeah, apparently, according to someone, at least, the original story of this episode did have Morn actually die.
Oh, wow. You can't kill Morn.
So, it says that according to Mark Allen Shepard, who plays Morn, he was told by Penny Juday, who, according to this, was art department coordinator. She had several jobs over her history with various Star Treks. But according to her, the writers were planning on killing him, and she went into this production meeting when they were talking about it, and she was like, wait a second, you can't kill Morn? That would be the show would be killing off its mascot. The fans love Morn. And according to her telling Mark Allen Shepard this, she basically single-handedly saved Morn.
Nice. Good job. Yeah, I think people would be pretty upset. Worf will miss his weekly sparring sessions with Morn, so that's new information.
Yeah, we've never heard Worf mention Morn as far as I know, but it's good to know that they were close.
Apparently he's a good fighter, so...
I mean, who would have thought?
Dax admits that she had a crush on Morn, and had a threesome with him and the fire dancer guy the night before her wedding.
I mean, given what we see the next morning, it's entirely possible, yeah.
I'm 100% sure that happened. Quark uses the opportunity to offload some Uridian ale to Morn mourners, claiming it was his favorite.
Very slick.
Odo is slightly incredulous of Quark's grief, and Quark reveals why he's so sad. Morn died with an open bar tab. Quark gets up and gives a touching eulogy that would make even Mark Antony jealous. He ends with a heartfelt plea for all to keep Morn's favorite bar a place of constant merriment and money spending. And make sure to always keep Morn's chair warm. Keep it warm for Morn.
And then he pulls the guy out of the crowd to sit in Morn's chair, and it's Mark Allen Shepard.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because he's quoted in here as being like, I had a lot of fun with this episode. Most people wouldn't have known that was actually me that Quark pulls out of the crowd to sit in Morn's chair.
Nice.
Sure, the people who come to conventions know, but the people just laughed. I was told, which I thought was really cool, that it was kind of an inside joke.
Nice. Kira, for one, is touched by the eulogy. Quark takes comfort in the arms of a Dabo girl, and then Sisko walks in and reveals the contents of Morn's will. Morn left everything to Quark.
Who would have thought? I do have to say, though, this one scene of the episode is where I feel like Quark doesn't manage to pull off the sounding genuinely, the speech didn't hit for me. I was just like, it sounds too transparently like he's faking this. And I feel like he's usually a better actor than that.
You mean Quark?
Quark, yeah, but also Armin Shimmerman, because I'm like, I don't know. Maybe Armin Shimmerman is just playing that Quark wasn't that good at pretending to really believe the speech that he was giving. I guess that's possible, but...
Yeah, I think he was trying to telegraph that it was all kind of a money-making ploy, and he wasn't really that sad.
I'm hard pressed to believe that someone like Kira would buy it the way that the speech is delivered. But then again, we know Kira is softening on Quark a little bit these days.
She's going through kind of a Quark admiration phase. So, for some reason.
Yeah.
Maybe because he rescued her from getting executed.
That can't hurt, for sure.
So, barely able to contain his greed, Quark shows up to Odo's office to claim his inheritance. But Odo savors this moment, this opportunity to torment Quark. Because as it turns out, Morn was broke. No money, nothing left of his business but a bunch of rotting beets. Still, you have to admire Quark's optimism as he talks himself into believing that Morn's quarters might be filled with valuable artworks. Or as they say in Ferengi, objet d'art.
I was like, wait, why is Quark speaking French? I'm not, but Odo is just, I feel like he's gone really far this time to just mess with Quark, because it's clear as we get into it that he knew all of the information that Quark is gradually figuring out. And so I'm just like, did you really need to follow him all over the station just to laugh at him? Like, do you not have a job to do?
This is how Odo gets his entertainment.
Apparently.
And I think just Odo completely sees through Quark, I think.
Well, obviously, yeah.
And so I think he probably feels this is he has this coming. So, but yeah, I wonder if there's a like Ferengi language that's their equivalent of French or something.
Oh.
Who knows how these translators work?
I love the idea that Mourn's just like this art connoisseur with so much expensive art in his quarters. Of course, I guess Quark was at the auction where he bought that Matador painting that we're going to see. So
based on that one data point, he assumes that Morn is this prolific art collector.
Other than booze, that's the only thing he's ever seen him spend money on, I guess. So he's like, well, that must be what he likes.
Yeah, but besides that one painting that Morn bought that one time, there's nothing in his quarters but a mud bath. Oh, and a sexy lady in the mud. And then, what are you doing in my mud is definitely my favorite line of the episode.
Like, Quark, he may not be happy about it, but damn it, this is his mud, okay?
Right? He's like, okay, you know what? I got mud. I am going to maximize my profit from this mud, or whatever.
Somehow.
So this lady introduces herself as Laurel, Morn's ex-wife. She claims that Morn had a sizable retirement fund. 1,000 bricks of gold-pressed latinum that Morn won in the Lesepian lottery. So it should be an easy thing to check if Morn was ever married.
You would think, yes.
Google who past Lesepian lottery winners are.
Okay, so we've talked about before the like exchange rate on latinum. But you gotta remember there's slips, strips, bars, and bricks.
Right.
So you got 100 slips to a strip, 20 strips to a bar, and that seems to be all that the wiki gives me. Although it also mentions that in an episode of Star Trek Short Treks, it mentions that one big bar of latinum is equal to 100,000 Federation credits. But I don't know what a big bar is.
Federation credits?
Yeah.
What is this?
They're like Republic credits that nobody takes them.
Right. But I mean, a brick of latinum. Cause how much did Quark sell his corpse for that one time? Wasn't it like 500 bars?
Oh, hold on.
And that was like
body parts real quick.
And that was like a huge fortune.
Yeah.
And so 1,000 bricks, I can't even imagine.
52 vacuum desiccated thingies. 500 bars, yep.
So, this just must be like $1 billion. So Quark gets to work looking for the latinum. It's not in the mud. Laurel acts all sexy with Quark, but he sees through her tricks. He's not going to give away that latinum. But she says she could contest the will and proposes that they split the latinum and then go on a sexy vacation together.
I mean, could she really, like, his ex-wife, does she really have any standing to contest his will? Future law may be weird, I don't know.
Well, and she definitely doesn't, because...
Well, yeah, she's not actually his ex-wife, right. But spoiler.
So Quark agrees to the deal using the time-honored deal sealer of pressing your face into someone's boobs.
Yep, that's how I steal every deal.
Right. It's never steered me wrong. A good firm handshake, forget about it. Later, Quark discusses the matter with Dax over a game of Tongo. He's agreed to let L'Rell have 10% after doing apparently no research into her claim to be Morn's ex-wife.
But she could maybe keep him tied up in court if it was really true, so this is a good deal. But I mean, I think we may be seeing some of the reasons why Quark is not all that successful in business.
Right. This is we're starting to see some pretty noticeable cracks in the Quark facade of business cunning. But yeah, now all that's left to do is actually find the Latinum. Dax warns Quark not to let himself get taken in by a pretty face. Quark scoffs, but to make her point, Dax lays down her cards and takes the pot.
I think it may have been more that he was distracted by not her, but the situation happening in his life, but still.
Quark goes home with his painting and sees a mysterious person lurking in the shadows. Assuming it's L'Rell, he's initially pleased. But it turns out to be a pair of alien brothers. A smart one doing a bad Jack Nicholson impersonation.
It is such a Jack Nicholson impersonation. I was shocked there wasn't a note about this in the wiki or something, because it's just so over the top.
Well, it's just close enough to Jack Nicholson that I was like, what is he trying to do? Who is that? It took me forever to figure it out. But, and also there's a dumb brother doing what I think is an even worse Jack Nicholson impersonation.
That I did not get, if the second one is also doing that.
I think he's trying to do something, but he kind of slips in and out of it. I don't know. Yeah, but they claim to be business associates of Morn, and that Morn owed them, you guessed it, 1,000 bricks of latinum.
Who would have thought?
Quark begins negotiating them down, throwing in the painting as a sweetener, but Dumb Brother just breaks the painting over Quark's head.
Man, I don't know how much Morn bought that for, but it was clearly worth something.
Yep. Yeah, wasn't the flag of some Martian colony based on that painting?
Yeah.
So, what a priceless artifact now lost to history. In the end, 50% is agreed upon, and the brothers leave menacingly. So Quark is now down to 40% of the fortune.
I mean, still a good amount of bricks of latinum.
Yeah. But when they're gone, Quark notices something hidden in the broken painting. It's a storage slip for a storage locker in the assay office. Quark is ecstatic. This gives Odo an opportunity to get in some more taunting.
Yep, Odo is 100% on this train of I want to make fun of Quark as much as possible. Also, why Quark thinks that the latinum is in the assay office when he's already specified that he had the station scanned and the latinum is not on the station, I can't imagine.
I don't know. You'd think the assay office would be scan-proof or something, but...
Oh, maybe.
But then wouldn't you be like, oh, I wonder if it's in the assay office?
I mean, yeah, if he's keeping something valuable, isn't that like the one place that you would keep it? Like, shouldn't that be your first thought? Like, hey, does Morn have a locker in the assay office?
Again, Quark's, maybe it's just, having a hot lady around makes his IQ go way down or something. I don't know. But yeah, so seeing Quark jumping up and down, expecting to get a giant locker full of latinum bricks, Odo makes a big show of handing Quark a little box. But happily for Quark, there is a brick of latinum in there.
Also, Odo does the thing where he's just like, yeah, the rules say that all the boxes have to be opened in front of security. And Quark's like, that's not a rule.
Yeah.
So Odo is really just like going out of his way to. I'm not sure that I feel like we're getting into illegal territory now, where you're making up fake laws and quote unquote enforcing them on people.
Yeah, this is how he's getting his entertainment. But apparently, written on the bottom of the brick in Morn's handwriting is an account number for the Bank of Boleus. It seems like that latinum is practically Quark's.
So, I mean, if it's an account number, you would think, I mean, the bank accounts must work differently in the future, because you would think this would be a situation where if you have an account, you put money in there, the bank, invests the money, and then if you ever want to take some out, they're like, oh, well, here's our big stack of money. We will give you some of the money off of that. That cannot be what is happening here, based on what we see. Because, they bring Mourn's big 999 bricks of latinum, and then it turns out there's no latinum in them. So, unless the bank is really scamming everybody, this must have been more like a safe deposit box.
Yeah, it's a weird economic situation all around, because you always... there's no latinum-backed currency. And there's no... It seems like there's no real, digital exchange or, crypto security or anything. It's just everybody just gives each other the literal physical latinum. So I guess banks are just storage buildings where you keep the latinum.
Well, but I mean, Quark is out there trading in, futures of various things. So there must be some sort of digital. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure the writers have thought it out in detail, and they know what's going on. They know what the difference between a bar and a brick is.
Also, the Bolians are members of the Federation, so the fact that they have banks, seems weird.
Yeah. Maybe they're just known for their banks. A society without currency might still need banks,
I mean, maybe you've redefined what a bank is.
Right.
A society without currency. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially if it's a warehouse that you can keep your stuff in.
Yeah.
So Quark runs into L'Rell in the corridor, and she asks about the progress of the latinum search. Quark says he still doesn't know where it is, while she does some sexy oomoxing. Only later in the turbolift does Quark realize that L'Rell picked the brick out of his pocket.
Okay, there's no way. It's funny because when he puts the brick into inside his coat, I was like, does he seriously have a pocket? But for one thing, this coat is tight fitting. But also, I was like, does he have a pocket big enough for a brick? And then I thought, well, he's a Ferengi. Maybe he had his coat specially designed with a pocket that would exactly fit a brick of latinum, just on the optimistic chance that he ever has a brick that he needs to carry around. But I watched her during this scene, and I'm like, there is no way that she, with any of the movements she does, makes it inside of his jacket, and certainly not, manages to slip that enormous brick out of his pocket. And she has nowhere on her to keep it either. There's no way that she did this. It reminded me of what's the movie? The Uncharted movie, where there's a scene where they meet, their contact in France or Italy, wherever they go in Europe, and she manages to pickpocket something out of his backpack, even though he's wearing his backpack the whole time, and she never comes within 3 feet of him. She literally never approaches. We see her the entire time and never approaches anywhere near him, and yet somehow has stolen a thing out of his backpack. And I was like, oh, this is this is just like that. I guess technically that was after this, but it's so weird.
I don't think we never even see her with the brick after that, do we? Or even hear her reference having the account number or anything. So it's possible the brick just fell out of his shirt.
Oh, that would honestly make way more sense than what we seem to have seen. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I will buy that.
So yeah, luckily Quark has the account number memorized, and he's the only person the bank will give the money to. Unluckily, he runs into the Jack Nicholson brothers, who want to get in some gangster-style menacing, but he continues to play dumb.
But they also want to apologize for hitting him with the painting.
Sure.
They seem legitimately to be oh no, we actually want to make this apology. We're going to threaten you also, but seriously, we're sorry.
Yeah, these guys have a little bit of, who's that robot who's always stabbing people?
Oh, Roberto?
Yeah. I think they got a little bit of that energy going on.
Gotta practice my stabbing, Red. Okay. That's by Roberto.
Nice. Very nice. So Quark goes back to his quarters to call the Bank of Boleus, but he's ambushed by a stranger with a gun. No, wait, that's not a stranger. That's the guy who tried to prosecute Dax for treason that one time.
No. That's a misunderstanding.
Now he claims to work for Lurian Security. He explains that rather than winning the money from the Lesepian lottery, Morn got the money from the Lurian royal family. For you see, Morn was the former crown prince of Luria before abdicating. Plausible story. As usual, Quark takes it at face value.
I like, when you look at this guy's history of Star Trek appearances, he's not one of those actors who's been in a bunch of episodes as like different aliens with a bunch of prosthetics that, you can't tell. He's been in 5 different episodes, and except for one Enterprise episode where he's a Vulcan, he just looks like himself every time. And we're just going to make it work. Like, he's in an episode of Voyager, he's in an episode of Enterprise, but it looks like maybe it's a Mirror Universe episode where he plays Admiral Black, some sort of Mirror Universe Admiral. But anyway.
I just assume it's the same guy. I still think that Wenyun and Brunt are the same guy, so.
Oh, yeah, right.
Lurian security guy also is interested to hear that L'Rell is also on Deep Space Nine looking for the money, and suggests that she may have even caused Mourn's death. So he cuts a deal with Quark. Help him arrest L'Rell and the Jack Nicholson brothers, and Quark will get a reward. Quark agrees without even asking how much the reward will be.
I mean, better than nothing, I guess. Which, once again, Quark, maybe look into... I mean, I know he had a badge, but replicators can make all sorts of things.
Right. Quark really seems to have not taken his smart pills today or something.
Yeah.
Then Bashir strolls into Quark's, jonesing for a Tillamine froth, and finds Chief O'Brien doing some work while keeping Mourn's chair warm. But Quark is nowhere to be seen. O'Brien gets up to go test the gizmo he's working on, and Bashir takes over Mourn's seat-warming duty.
Good man.
Yeah, gotta keep that chair warm. Quark steps into his quarters and immediately asks if anyone is in there. This time it's L'Rell, who claims she's been chased by the alien brothers. And speak of the devil, that's probably them ringing the doorbell. And now that's them trying to pick the lock to get in.
I do love the recurring, like, man, you should really invest in a new lock.
Right. So Quark hides L'Rell in the corner and dims the lights, then decides to just go talk to the brothers. Then the doorbell rings again, and again someone starts picking the lock. The brothers go to hide in the corner where L'Rell is hunkered down, but Quark suggests going to the bedroom or whatever that was back there instead. This time it's Lurian cop guy, who is a suspiciously not Lurian-looking guy for a guy who works for...
I mean, he could just be a guy who's really good at his job, so they contracted him to come out.
It's like when FBI agent Steve Johnson calls you about your car being found abandoned at the Mexican border, and he, for some reason, has a thick South Asian accent.
And he's like, if you just send us some Apple gift cards, then we will let the matter rest.
I need you to go down to Walgreens and get 8 $500 Google Play gift cards, and then tell me the numbers. And then this will absolve you of the blood-soaked car that we found at the Mexican border.
Exactly. So, fun note, this episode is nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Makeup because of the makeup on Crit and Nosk, the Jack Nicholson brothers.
Uh-huh.
And Michael Westmore, who's the one who's nominated, says, we did this bony ridge that went all around the head and right down the back, and then had it on their hands, too. Also, L'Rell is all forehead with widow peaks on. So I guess he's happy with his work on this one.
Yeah, those brothers looked pretty good. They looked... all the alien makeup looked really natural. Like, there was nothing weird that called attention to itself.
Yeah.
Like, there was no... Fifth Element divas walking around or anything. So yeah, Quark tries to subtly alert Lurian Cop Guy to the presence of the alien brothers, but he doesn't get it, and the brothers just come out with a gun. And they don't seem convinced that What's-His-Face is a cop. And then L'Rell comes out too, and they basically all reveal that they all used to work together with Morn. Quark says, then I guess he's not a prince, and you're not really a security agent. And they're like, did we not make that super clear already?
I do love how, like, it didn't seem like any of them were expecting the others to show up, despite the fact that everyone knew this is when, like, the statute of limitations ended on this crime.
Uh-huh. Also, L'Rell isn't really his ex-wife.
Morn wishes.
In reality, they are all, along with Morn, the perpetrators of, brace yourself, the famous Lessepian Mother's Day heist. And as you mentioned, the statute of limitations has just expired, conveniently.
Yeah.
The four heisters propose killing Quark and splitting the Latinum, but Quark points out that they can't kill him because they need him to take delivery of the Latinum. So one of the brothers gets ready to cut off Quark's thumb, but then it's pointed out that you can't just show up with a severed thumb and use it to sign for something.
I do love that was the plan. Like, this will be great.
So they agree to cut Quark in and all head down to the bar to wait for the delivery.
I also love that Hayne, the fake security guy, I like the moment where he like scratches his face with the gun.
Right.
It was just like, man, that's some really bad like gun discipline there.
Yeah, be careful.
Maybe it doesn't work. I don't know. I mean, honestly, he shouldn't have been able to get that gun on the station if it did work, since he's not really a security guy. So maybe it doesn't work. I mean, then again, no, it does, because they use them later.
Right. Well, this whole premise of the sensors on the doors to the promenade that detect guns seems to have gone out the window. Like, I think they broke a long time ago or something.
I mean, the Cardassians might have just uninstalled them, but
right. I think they've been broken long before that.
I think that Odo is too busy making fun of Quark to do his job, and that is one of the problems here.
He no longer cares about people conceal carrying on the promenade.
No, not when it means that he can like mess with Quark some.
Right. But yeah, over drinks, they wonder who killed Morn, but none of them takes credit. It seems like it really was an accident. Then Odo comes into the bar, but Quark goes and tells him the bar is closed for a couple of days while the friends of Morn commiserate.
Instead of, like, mouthing, help me, or something, and getting these guys arrested for all of their threats and stuff against him so that he can keep the money himself, he's just like, nah, it's fine.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he wants to go through with the deal. I don't know. Odo gives Quark the Fry squinty eyes and then leaves. The next day, the Latinum arrives. Quark signs for it and opens the box, and sure enough, there's a bunch of Latinum in there.
Well, gold at least.
Something that looks like Latinum.
Yeah.
But then all the other people pull guns on each other, and it gets a little comical when nobody can decide who to point their gun at. It's like the three-way standoff at the end of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, except four-way and not as competent.
Yep.
Instead they just start shooting each other. Quark dives into the Latinum box and waits for everybody to kill each other.
This should honestly be an easy standoff when 50% of the people involved are ostensibly on the same side.
Right.
But then, like, Jack Nicholson Brother 1 insults Jack Nicholson Brother 2, and he turns on him, and it's just like, ugh.
Right. These criminals, clearly Morn was the mastermind of this group.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly feeling that way. Like, given that this whole thing was his plan, clearly a better mastermind than any of them.
Right. Or Quark, even.
Like, or Quark, for sure. Presumably, now that I think about it, like, was she just in the mud? Like, when they go to Morn's room, maybe she heard them coming and jumped in the mud to hide. It's just a weird choice to make, is all I'm saying.
Took off her clothes when she was in the mud?
Yeah. Or the other possibility, she went into Morn's room and was like, I guess I'll hop in this mud for a bit. Like, I none of it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess she just really wanted to get in that mud bath. I don't know.
Maybe she thought there was something hidden in the mud.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she had that same thought that Quark had, which was that the latinum must be in the mud. So she got naked because who wants to get mud on your clothes? And then jumped into the... Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So luckily Odo shows up and arrests everybody. And with everybody in handcuffs, that means the treasure is all Quark's.
Yeah, he couldn't possibly have... This feels like one of those situations where Odo would 100% have arrested Quark just for being in the room where all this is happening. It's like, you must have been involved in this somehow. Let's sort this all out back at the jail.
Yeah. But Quark knocks together a couple of bricks to celebrate. But instead of the pleasant, familiar plink of latinum, there's only the dull thud of worthless gold, which shatters in Quark's hands like gold is known to do.
I'm like, apparently when you take the latinum out, it becomes ridiculously brittle for some reason.
Yeah, I guess, like, the latinum must be, I don't know, like, alloyed with the gold or something like that. And when you extract out the latinum, the crystal structure of the gold becomes brittle. I don't know.
Okay, I buy that. I don't know if it's the way that he phrases it in here, but I always just assumed that like the gold was just like it was hollow in the middle, and that's where you stick the latinum.
Yeah, but then I mean, we see in just a second the quantities of latinum that are apparently in those bricks, and it's like, why do you need a big huge brick of gold for that? Like, that entire, 100 bricks worth could have fit in one brick, so...
Yeah, easily. I just figured that was a, to make it visually impressive thing.
Sure. So, yeah, Quark is distraught. Odo is delighted. Later at the bar, Quark eyeballs Mourn's chair, and then is so mad he runs over and starts trying to rip it out. But before he can finish that job, Odo walks in with an unexpected visitor... Morn, who is not dead after all.
Yay!
I'm happy.
I was just like, I'm happy about it. I don't think Quark is happy about it, but...
Morn begins to explain, but Quark shushes him and has the conversation himself. And I always remember this as being like, Quark having like a telepathic conversation with Morn, but I guess he is just deducing everything that Morn is about to say or something.
Yeah.
But it was all a ploy by Morn to lure out his accomplices, to goad them into taking each other out. And it worked perfectly.
Gotta put Quark in the crossfire, but, you know.
Right. Morn is just such a master of plans that he knew this would all shake out right in the end. But where's the latinum? Asks Quark. Morn looks around furtively, and then vomits up a silvery liquid into a goblet.
So, apparently...
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously, the latinum is like a CG effect in this shot, but the noise that accompanies the regurgitation of the latinum took the sound editor Mace Matiosan, M-A-T-I-O-S-I-A-N, Matiosan, I don't know, several days of Foley recording and over 6 hours of editing to get the sound just right.
You know what? I believed it. I believed that alien monster was throwing up liquid metal. So,
I was like, at some point, it's just too much to be dedicating to this 2 seconds, my man. Just call it good enough and move on with your life.
No, this guy sounds like a professional. He's committed to his craft. So, Quark realizes the latinum must have been in Morn's second stomach all these years, which possibly is what made his hair fall out. Oh, and yeah, earlier there was the joke that he had all his hair. Okay, so also earlier in the episode, they said he first showed up at Quark's 10 years ago, but the Lesepian Mother's Day heist was 9 years ago. So was he already living on Terok Nor or whatever when that took place?
Well, I guess, at least coming through on his, because he's a trader, or a captain of a freighter or something, right? So.
Yeah, he's like an operator owner of a space truck. So
yeah, and a part-time wheelman for criminal enterprises.
Right.
Maybe all of this, the Levanian beats and everything, is just like his cover for his he's secretly like on the in the interstellar criminal community. He's known as like one of the best wheelmen around.
He's like the drive guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Quark judges that the small amount of latinum Morn gave him must be 100 bricks worth, and he cheers right up. Then he begins to pitch Morn a new business idea. You see, on some primitive planets, gold is actually considered quite valuable. Morn listens and drinks.
Yeah, he's like, we could take all that worthless gold you've got. And I'm like, can't you just replicate all the gold you want to trade with primitive planets? I don't. Also, what do they have that you want?
True. Objet d'art? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of objet d'art, I forgot when we were at that point, but it mentions in here that that painting that was purchased by Morn in the cards, John Eves painted 10 duplicates of the original, and then they were scored so that they would rip when smashed over Quark's head. So they were prepared for many takes of that smashing. It doesn't say how many were needed, but they were ready.
Nice.
Yeah. There could be some copies floating around out there if you ever, want a velvet matador.
I wonder if Morn pulled like a Thomas Crown, and that's actually the fake painting, and
the
real painting is somewhere else or something.
Like hidden in the sides of his mud tank is the real painting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just hate to think that painting is destroyed now.
I know, right? Okay. One of the notes is, as most of the fans know, the main concept of Morn is that he never speaks on camera, whereas off camera he allegedly never shuts up. Ira Stephen Bear has likened this to the character of Maris on the show Frasier, a character whose physical appearance is constantly described as being unique, but whom viewers never see.
Sure.
The silent aspect of the character proved to be a stumbling block to the writers wishing to do a, quote, Morn episode, and it wasn't until Mark Garrett O'Connell came up with the idea of doing a Morn episode which barely features Morn that the producers found something they were willing to make.
Nice.
But apparently his original pitch involves like Morn mysteriously disappearing and everyone else having to like hunt him down. And then during the search, they start to realize that, he's been around for 6 years, but none of them actually know much about him.
Ooh.
Renee Echevarria instead cut all that stuff out and introduced these new characters to make it interesting.
I don't know. That sounds pretty interesting.
Potentially, given how much Morn supposedly talks about himself, I'm not sure that I would buy if they were like, I don't really know anything about Morn.
Well, maybe everything he says about himself is a lie.
Oh, that would be funny. It turns out he's just been making up these tall tales this whole time.
Uh-huh.
There's a short story collection or anthology called Tales of the Dominion War, and in one of them, the story called Mirror Eyes, there's a Romulan Tal Shiar operative working undercover on Deep Space Nine, and she identifies Morn as the only inhabitant on the station with whom she feels an intellectual kinship.
Ooh.
So she's maybe she showed up to this to the funeral. She's like, oh man, that guy, I'm gonna miss him.
She watched from the shadows.
And apparently in the video game Star Trek Deep Space Nine Crossroads of Time, Morn can be found on the upper level at Quark's. He is the only character in the entire game that does not talk.
Nice.
So, fun little expanded universe for Morn facts. Armin Shimmerman is not fond of this episode.
Oh, really?
He comments, that's one of the iniquities about Mark Allen Shepard still being an extra. Here's a whole episode around someone who's basically a background performer, and that's ridiculous. The definition of a background performer is someone you don't pay attention to. They're someone in the background, so how can you have an episode about them? It shows one of the inequities of what's happening over at the show, that the producers are still treating Mark as though he's an extra. Renee often says that I've created a monster in Mark, because I was very solicitous about him in the beginning, and so was David Livingston, who is not only a director, but also our line producer. Between the two of us, we got a lot of coverage for Mark, so it's taken off from there.
Huh. Yeah, I think we've mentioned this about Morn before. He never gets a credit. Even Tiny Ron, who never speaks, gets a full guest actor credit, but Morn never does.
Yep.
So
they don't have to pay him, even in this episode, I guess, which is all about him.
Yep. Although he's not in it very much, to be fair, but
yeah,
still.
That's true. Renee Echevarria says, Mark Garrett O'Connell did a good job, but the comedy was too broad. Ultimately, it wasn't a Morn episode. It was a story about Quark, and the most
Yeah.
common mistake people make in writing Quark is to make him transparently greedy. On paper, that's very funny, but Armin doesn't play Quark that way. Armin plays it real.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I thought some of the Quark just transparent greed moments were, they got some chuckles out of me, but
I mean, maybe that's the source of like the complaints we've had about like how Quark is not handling this intelligently. Is that it's just like he's seeing the dollar signs and that's all he's seeing, and so he's going to be an idiot about it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That aspect of it bothers me more than
Quark
being greedy and telling people that what was it, Andorian ale or whatever was Morn's favorite drink, because you just know he probably has like a few extra cases he's trying to move or something.
That I bought 100%. I was like, that sounds like Quark. That's Quark the businessman. A couple of authors in a review said that there's a few episodes in this season that could be set in a previous season, and they tend to stick out a bit. This is one of them. A fun romp that feels strange among all the madness, war, and death of the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, they're not... Yeah, we're in the middle of the Dominion War, and it's like, let's do this fun little thing. I can see how that would feel off.
Yeah, tonally, I think it definitely feels like an earlier season episode. And just in terms of wackiness, I feel like you got some of that goofier stuff, even though we've had like the Magnificent Ferengi just recently and stuff.
Yeah.
But
it almost feels too soon after the Magnificent Ferengi to do another Quark episode of wackiness.
Yeah.
The last note I have that's not about the title is the soundtrack bears a resemblance to Gustav Holst's Mars from The Planets.
The song? I don't remember that from the episode.
I don't know. I mean, that's one of these notes that's like, so somebody just felt like they sounded kind of the same and decided to make that a note in the wiki. But
that's the song that 21 and 24 sing when they're.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know The Planets much at all, so I will take your word for it. So anyway, you guys out there, if you want to go back and listen to the soundtrack of the episode and then listen to Mars, let us know if they really are similar.
Leave a comment. Tell us. Give us your analysis.
Or maybe it's more similar to Jupiter. I don't know. I assume that all the planets get a song. Like I said, I'm not familiar with the...
I'm pretty sure there's a song for every planet, but I think Mars is the most famous one.
Huh. Okay.
And I don't know what year that was written. Some of the planets might not have been discovered yet, so...
I have to look this up. Planets. The Suite by Gustav Holst. Written between 1914 and 1917. Okay. 7 movements.
Oh, what
Mars,
planet?
Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune.
So there's no Mercury?
No, Mercury's number 3. There's no Earth.
Oh, right. Okay.
Makes sense, I guess.
Sure. Seems like Earth should get a song. That's not fair.
Earth has all the other songs.
That's true. It's like the Blue Danube is about Earth.
Apparently Saturn is his, or was, Holst's, since he's gone, Holst's favorite movement of the suite.
Ooh. So maybe if I remember, I'll put a link to that whole thing in the description.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's public domain performances all around. So it is review time. What do you think of Who Mourns for Morn?
Okay, so like I kind of pointed out in the last episode, we're getting back into this like focusing on individual people in a big run, which I'm starting to tire of. And this is the second Quark one in, like, wasn't Magnificent Ferengi just like 2 episodes ago or something? Like, it's a little much this close together.
Mm-hmm.
Despite that, this is one of those episodes that I always remember. I always have fun watching. It's got a lot of problems. It's got a lot of logical, like, there's so many things you could be like, this is nitpick of the week for me. Like, it's just like full of nitpicks screaming out to be picked.
Right.
But I enjoy it. I have a lot of fun with this episode every time. And so it is definitely a commander for me.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think this would be a pretty mediocre episode, if not for the fact that it's an episode that centers on Morn. So, I think just with that alone, It's a commander also. I don't have much to say about it. Like, I think we've touched on all the stupid stuff that makes no sense and all that, and
Yep.
it's just kind of a flimsy plot, I feel like, and I don't know. It just kind of gets in and gets out. It's not super ambitious, but it's a Morn spotlight, so you're engaged the whole way through.
And it's funny that it mentions like this would fit into an earlier season, but the thing is, if it was a season 1 or 2 episode, we wouldn't have like that. That like liking
build up
Morn as much as we do. Yeah,
that mystery about Morn,
and so it wouldn't hit as well if we didn't know, or I guess we really don't know Morn. If we hadn't seen Morn, had Morn around that for so long.
Yep, that's a good point. So what about the title?
This is okay. Well, there's one note about the title.
That
this is a pun that plays on the title of the original series episode, Who Mourns for Adonis?
Right.
So
I forgot. I think we've talked about that title before, but I forgot about it. And then I was like looking it up on IMDb or something, and it was like Who Mourns for, and it was like Who Mourns for Adonis. I was like, oh, yeah.
So I think that is where some good cleverness comes in here, because you're like, oh, we're gonna have this episode about Morn's death. Hey, let's like play off of this earlier Star Trek episode title. It is 100% memorable. This may be, for me, the most memorable of the entire series, where it's like, you say that title, and I know what episode we're talking about. You tell me the episode, and I will rattle the title off. I got it. Like, this one is right there.
Yeah, there's no possible confusion.
No. And it could not be much more appropriate, quite honestly, on like multiple levels, because it's just like, there's Morn is dead, we have a big funeral for him, but then there's the idea of like, all of these people who are ostensibly closest to Morn, his criminal co-conspirators, Quark, who he's left everything to in his will, none of them is really mourning him. And so, like there's levels even that this is. So I think that this may be hands down, with our 3 criteria, the best title of the series.
Quite possibly the perfect title. Although,
right.
If this was not the title of the episode, I might have actually come up with this as like the alternate title. But especially with like that Who Mourns for Adonis, that's like, it makes it like so perfect. So
yep,
they really hit the nail on the head as compared to like Waltz or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think we got so spoiled with the exciting Dominion War story arc at the beginning of the season. I'm not so much annoyed by like the single character episodes, but just kind of the I don't know. I want some more of that. Let's get back into it.
The war was a big deal. Maybe we should pay attention to it. Right. It's interesting because I just today saw, I don't know if it was an article, I saw a headline that was like, what Star Trek needs is the return of the filler episode. Because all of the new series are like, these 10 episode seasons where they're telling a tight story, and it doesn't get time to like breathe.
Yeah.
Whereas back during this time period, you could call most of it filler until we got to Deep Space Nine, and they were doing, until we get to these later seasons of Deep Space Nine, and they're doing a story. And even then, you still got this episode, which is clearly, if you're talking about the overall arc, this is a filler episode. There's no other way to look at it. It's not even really developing character much, unless you count Morn, the background player who doesn't even get a credit, as having developed through this episode. So it is like the definition of a filler episode. And it's great. Yeah. So I kind of agree that, like, now that they're canceling Lower Decks and the 5th season is the last one, I've heard people being like, well, 5 seasons is a great number. And I mean, all of, like, these classic Trek shows, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, they only got 7, so it's not that much more. And I'm like, well, that was 7, like, 20-plus episode seasons of 1-hour shows.
Yeah.
As opposed to 5 10-episode seasons of a half-hour show. That's a lot of content difference.
Yeah.
Despite the number that you place on the season. And so I feel like that I probably agree with that there is definitely a place for filler episodes. And maybe you don't need half of the season to be filler episodes, but there's room to like pad it out a little bit and let things breathe. Which is what this episode is giving us, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not thrilled. That's the one aspect of this episode that I'm not thrilled about is maybe it's just because this is like the fourth one in a row or something that's been that. Like I'm tired. I'm ready to get back.
Even Waltz, which I think was in some ways an important episode, but it felt very filler.
Yeah.
I don't know. TV is just never going to be what it was, where
it's true.
You're never going to make an appointment to watch your show again. You're not going to get home from work and crash on the couch and turn on the TV and be like, "Ooh, houses tonight. All right." Or whatever. Those days are just gone. So, yeah, it's all about the serial streaming binge-able storytelling. So, but anyway, you ready to call it there?
Yeah, I'm good.
That's our discussion of Who Mourns for Morn. Thanks for listening. If you like that one, maybe you'll like our discussion of Body Parts. Similar episode, I guess. Which you can find wherever you're listening to this. All that and our past and maybe future episodes if you're in the future. And if you want to leave us a comment that we'll read, you can do that on YouTube. My name is Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
See ya.
We look forward to seeing you next week. But remember, keep it warm for Morn.